Hello everyone, welcome back to this series. I know it's been a while since I last updated with another video. Um, I'm going to explain the reason when we look at the server code in a little bit. And in this video, I'm going to go over the front end and how we hook up the front end and the back end with NSwag. Then I'm going to go over a little bit about the end design of Angular, the UI components that I use for this for the front end. And for this particular part of the series, I'm gonna wing everything. I'm not gonna edit anything out and anything else. So it might take long. It might be a mess. So please excuse me. All right. So this is our front end. It is a very simple Angular app. You have an app bar and you have like content, and then I have like a placeholder footer. I have a register, form, login forms, and a to-do list where I have a table, and then I have a form groups with like two controls to add new to do, and then just log out, doesn't do anything. So the forms, the UI is provided by end design of Angular. So I know end design is pretty popular in the React world, and the end design team has a port for Angular, and I really like the look of it. So that's why I use end design for this project. You should check it out. It's really good. Right now the version is 1.4.0, and this is NSwag. So NSwag is a tool that takes in the Swagger specification file, the swagger.json file, and convert it to a TypeScript client, specifically for our case, Angular 2 TypeScript clients. This TypeScript client is just a file that contains all of the functions that connect to the endpoints that we specify in our backend. Because we use Swagger, so like all those endpoints get documented in the swagger.json file. That's why NSwag was able to use the Swagger document file to convert it, to read and to convert it to um, a client file. It's easy to use. It abstracts on the HTTP client calls on the Angular side, so you feel like you just inject the service and then you call a function on it. You don't have to directly use HTTP service at all, and it will persist all the models and interfaces that we define on the backend. Excuse me. That's why I use like NestJS for TypeScript compatibility and built-in Swagger. So TypeScript makes everything possible with Swagger. Alright, so that's that. For NSwag, you're gonna need the NSwag package. You can install the NSwag with npm or yarn, and you need to install the package globally. Another requirement for you to use NSwag is that you need an NSwag file that ends with .nswag. So for Windows users, NSwag provides a software, an application that you can use to generate this file with all the options in a GUID format. So you don't have to remember all these options. For Mac users and Linux users, the GitHub page, they have all of these options available for you to look over. but I would recommend you to copy what I have right now and modify it. Look it up in the documentations and see what the option does and modify it. So for NSwag, there are two important value that you have to provide. That is the first one is the local the input. So it takes in a URL that points to the swagger.json file, and we expose the swagger.json file on our backend. And if you look at man.ts, so this is where we expose that swagger.json file, and we send the swagger doc that we create with the swagger module. So that's the input. And for the output is in the client folder and the source directory in the app directory, and I call it app.api.ts. So I'm going to show you the file, the generated file. So this is the api.ts that gets generated by NSwag, and it has it generates all the endpoints, all the calls that you have available on your controllers. So specifically for a user controller, it converts to user client, and where this client comes from, it actually comes from, it's right here. See multiple clients from operation ID, and then the class name is like controller and append client. So you can change it to service or anything that you like. I use client because it is client, right? So for user, I have a register route and a login route, and it knows that my register takes in a register VM and it returns a user VM. So it possesses all of the models that I define on the backend, and I expose the models that get exposed to Swagger, not the models on my MongoDB. So the VM stands for view model, if you remember, and it's gonna define all the URL on the endpoints, the options, and it's gonna call the HTTP.request. So it's abstract all the HTTP requests for you. You just have to inject this service called the register, pass in what you need, subscribe to it, and get back what you expect from the controller. So that NSwag, and you see it saves us like 1,000 lines of code, and like we have like 4 routes on the to-do controller and then 2 routes on the user. Imagine that you have like 10 controllers and then 4 to 5 to 6 routes in each controller. These files might get to like 5,000 lines of code, and you don't have to write those 5,000 lines of code. All right. So that NSwag. Now I'm gonna go over the changes that I made to the server. So namely in the to-do controller, I commented out the rows decorator and the useGuards decorator, so I can test out the front end without logging in, without having to use the interceptor to append the authorization header to call these endpoints. So I take it out so I can test the front end and the back end communication. Alright, the first change is the API implicit query decorator now takes in an enum. This is actually a PR, a pull request that is submitted that took over a month for NestJS to merge in, and this is the reason why I postponed the this part of the video, because I was waiting for this to be merged in so I can show you guys what it should look like. So if now you go to localhost 3000 API docs, that's where my server is running, and I go to my get, Now you see that my level query now has the available values of my enum values. And if I test it out, now um, you can pick from the list. You don't have to type it in exactly. You can just pick from the list. And because I set the isArray to true as well, that's why I have a multi-select UI. If you omit the isArray, it's going to be a drop down. So that's the PR. Everything stays the same. I modify a little bit. Oh, and there's one more thing is the API responses. Now, NestJS provides some shorthand API responses decorators. So here I have like API OK response, API bad request response. So you don't have to pass in the status to these decorators anymore. And I think it's nice. A little bit less boilerplate code. All right, so I think that's pretty much it in my in the server. Now let's go over the client side, and I'm not going over the design, the CSS, the HTML because it is long. You can take a look at the repo. Um, basically, I have like 5 components, and I'm not using lazy load or anything because I only have like 5 components. And for Ndesign to work with Angular, they actually provide a schematics that you can use to add ngn to your project. And it's gonna do like import these guys from the package. It's gonna import the ng0 Ndesign module to your imports array. It's gonna do this. It's gonna put this, provide the internationalization for you. So it's really nice, really short, just one command, and you got ngn design in your project. This part is for NSwag to work. So basically, because I have like the front end's running on localhost 4200 and then the back end on localhost 3000. Normally, when you development, you want to set the cores on the server to true, so you can accept cross domain requests. I don't want to, so that's why I set the base URL to the origin, which is localhost 3000 or whatever domain that I'm on, and I append the /API to it, because that's what my server starts with. I mean the base URL for my server /API/users/register. So that's why I provide this value to the API base URL token, and in the app API, that token actually used to inject the base URL to the URL that is used to make the request with. Normally, NSwag generates with the backend domain, and this doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So that's why I have base URL. And now, if I make a request, it actually goes to localhost 4200/API, and now we have to proxy from localhost 4200 to localhost 3000. You cannot make direct call to 3000. You have to proxy it. So that's why in my root project of my Angular, I have a proxy.conf.json where I set the API and the target the localhost 3000. This is the proxy that you have to set up for the front end to work in development mode. And after you set that up with the proxy.json file, you have to go to angular.json. Under serve, under options, you have to set the proxy config and you point to that file. So now when you make a request on your front end, it's going to go to 4200. And then from 4200 / API is going to proxy every request to / API to localhost 3000. And that's how you make a request, and that's how you make a proxy. All right. And let's go to register. So this is the HTML template. It's a lot of code, it's a lot of boilerplate, and the documentation of Nginx is really great. You can just copy and paste and make change. It's really, really good. And I use reactive forms, by the way. Alright, now in my component file, I inject from builder, I inject user client. This is from api.ts, which is right here. And I also inject router so I can navigate. I call it init form, which I build my form with form builder. I do have some validators set up just to show it doesn't do anything. And display validation errors. This is actually in Nginx documentation, so you can just look it up, see how it works. The main point here is the onSubmit. So for onSubmit, we know that our register takes in a register VM, so that's why I declare a new const register VM and ASI, a new register VM, and I pass in this .form.value. So register VM is username, password, first name, and last name, and that is exactly my form controls. So I just can't pass it in. I don't have to do an object username. This is the form.value.username. I can just pass the whole form value into the register VM, and then I pass the register VM to my register method. I just pipe catch error. I don't think I need this because I can just throw it anyway. And then I just subscribe to it. And then on success, I navigate to login. If not, just console log the error. Now let's go to login, and then I'm gonna show how this works. So for login, same thing. It's just login VM. And subscribe, navigate to to-do. So in this subscribe, normally you would save the login response that has the token, the current user, to local storage or Redux if you like. I'm not gonna do anything with that for this project. So you have to save it somewhere in the local storage, so you can get the token to append to the authorization header when you make requests with an interceptor. NSwag generated file doesn't do that for you. You have to set up an interceptor. Alright, so now let's look at how the form works. I'm going to show you the display validation errors. So if you click register, it's going to show the validation errors. This again provided out of the box with from NDesign. Really nice, really subtle. I really like it. If I put in, say, username 1 2 3 4 5 6 and John Doe. Click register. Success. And if I open my terminal, this is my user from the backend, right? I got username, I got password is not here because I map the user to user VM, and on my user VM I don't have the password. Alright, now if I try to log in with the wrong username, it's gonna be an error. And if I look at the network, so this error is invalid credentials, right? Same thing, if I have the right username and the wrong password, I got invalid credentials. Alright, now if the username is right and the password is right, and I click login, I can log in. And as you can see, this is my token, this is my user that I append to the login response VM, and then on my to-do, I fetch to-dos, which I have only one right now, and let's see how the fetch to-do works. All right, same thing, inject form builder and inject to-do client. I need the form, and then I get to-dos. So for get to-dos, which is right here, I just call the get all method. If you remember, on the back end, I took out all of the rows decorator and the users decorator. So now my backend is not protected, so I can just test this out without the authorization hassle. So I just call get all subscribe and then assign the to-dos to to-dos. One thing, the editable cache is from Nginx data table, editable data table from NDesign. This is from their documentation, and basically the update editable cache is to allow you to do in-row editing and stuff like that. So that I got an error right here because it's already completed. I cannot edit a completed error. To do. So I'm just gonna refresh real quick, and as you can see, my whole app is just like one megabyte, but the load time is like 1 second. It's horrendous. All right, so init form, same thing with content and level. Again, on submit, I call to do client create. So this to do list should be separated, but I put everything under this file just for simplicity reason. And you might want to check out this file and the template to see how everything works, because it could be a little bit complex because of the editable cache that Nginx is using. All right. Now let's just show how the to-do list works. First, let's create some new to-do. It's just normal, so that works. And this is my request, that works. Now if I try to edit this, and I click yes, that works as well. So that's my to-dos. This is the put request, and that works. So say the content has been updated. And if I change the priority level back to high, that works as well. Now if I try to refresh, so that works. My order gets messed up, so don't worry about it. So let the CRUD operation is working. I don't have the delete in here. I should, but I don't. So, but delete should be working as well. And that's pretty much it. That's our front end. The front end is connected, it's communicated with the back end. So I think we good on that. Again, it is a really simple Angular application. There's some part that is a little bit complex by the approach that the Nginx is using. So please check out the repo if you confused, or if you have any questions, just message me, email me, or just leave a comment on the on the comment section. I will answer every single one of the question because I don't have that much. All right. Now that the client and server is done, there's one last thing that I want to touch base with you guys. If you pay attention already in my console log, the console log looks a little bit weird. It has a T, things like that, because the bundle is uglified, right? And because I'm running everything on Dockers, multiple Docker containers. I have my Nest server, my Mongo, and then my Angular, all running on Docker containers. And I can show you guys how I set it up. So for the client, this is the Docker file for the client. I have a branch on the repo for Docker, so you can check that out. I have steps that you can take to get the Docker branch up and running with Docker Compose. You would have to have Docker and Docker Compose. I think Docker Compose comes with Docker, but don't quote me on that. But you have to have Docker installed in your machine for sure. And this is the Docker file. I will go over it really quick. So from the Alpine image, I make a new work directory app, and I copy everything. I copy every package.json file, which is the package.json and package.log.json file, to that work directory, and I run npm install. So it's gonna install all my dependencies under the work directory. After I install it, I copy everything from, I think I copy everything which is the source, the end-to-end folder, to the app, and then I run build. So now on my /app work directory, I have a dist out directory. That's the first stage. And now for the second stage, I pull in the Nginx image. I copy the Nginx config file. This file is really complex. I copy and paste this from a Medium blog post. So I can't really explain much here, but same thing over here. I proxy the /API to my Nest 3000. The reason why, because I run everything under Docker Compose, so it's not using localhost. It's actually using my container name, which is Nest, for the server. So I have to put Nest and then a port number here. So I proxy just like we proxy with the proxy JSON file for the client and the server. All right, I copy that config file to the etc nginx and nginx config file. This directory is the default directory that Nginx will look into for the config file. And then from the previous stage, I copy the output folder, which is the build folder from my Angular app, to the HTML again. HTML is the default directory for Nginx to look into for the index.html to serve it, and then I suppose the port 80 and 443, and then I run Nginx with these parameter. So that's the front end. Build on the Docker container, and then copy over to the HTML directory on Nginx, and Nginx serve that directory. So if I click over here, I should see Nginx. Yep, right here. All right, now for the server Docker file. All right, same thing. I pull in the Alpine node image. I copy everything, literally everything from the current directory to source, and then I make my work directory, that source folder, my work directory, and then I run yarn, and yarn cache clean on that work directory. And this is the second stage. So I pull in a new node image, and I copy from the previous stage the TS config, the test lint, the config, which has my keys, my configuration keys, the dist, and the node modules. So the dist, it comes from, so I have a post install script that's gonna run the TypeScript compiler that's gonna output the dist folder. So that's where it comes from, because it automatically runs the TypeScript compiler after it runs yarn install. For TS config and TS lint, I don't know why I have such weird problem when running this Docker container without these two files, so that's why I have to copy it in as well. Then I make the app my new work directory, and then I use PM2. Again, I'm a beginner in Docker. I know literally nothing about Docker, so this looks like shit to you, please let me know. I know I have to use like a user, a node user or something like that, instead of a root user. And PM2 is meant for production, and I use it for development. It's just to put something together in Docker to show you guys. And then finally, I have everything in my Docker Compose. So for the services, I have Nginx. I make that Nginx Angular. The image is Nginx Angular, and then the build, the context is my client directory, and it looks for a Docker file in client for the Nginx. This depends on Nest, and the network is Nest mean network. You can make this any name you like. You can make this any name you like. All right, for Nest, same thing. Container name Nest server. The context is my server directory. It looks for Docker file. Ports, and it depends on the MongoDB. So for MongoDB, just you pull in like a fresh Mongo image. You can look for all the images, all the available images on Docker Hub. And this again, same network, same port. And finally, for cAdvisor, you just have to copy everything I have here for you, because I copied as well. So cAdvisor is going to monitor all of your containers, and is available on 8080. And then same network, and then you define your network and make the driver bridge, so you can bridge all four. And then you just run Docker Compose up, and it's gonna run all the containers. It's gonna prepare all the containers, and everything will run. All right, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching this series. I'll be rolling out more content about NestJS in the near future, Angular as well. So stay tuned, and thank you. Bye bye. That's my wife.